All right. Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Bryan Hogue. I'm the host of Chiller Chat, and I'm here tonight with the Chiller Night pre-show. Talk to you a little bit about Chiller Night Theater and Chiller Chat, and just a few other topics as we go along. So I see some have joined the page so far, so that's cool. Good news, I got my webcam back. We got our Wi-Fi up and running this week, so no phone. Brad says it's the Chiller Night pre-show with Bryan Hogue, starring Bryan Hogue. And now here's Bryan. So Travis joined. Okay, cool. All right, we're starting to get some folks. So what we do here, I've been doing this now for about the last month or so, or maybe a little longer. I just decided at one point to go on live on Facebook and just start kind of reminding people, making some noise about the show coming up at 9 o'clock on Stream TV. And you have anybody else? Robert Burkhart gave me a thumbs up. So if you don't know, if this is the first time you've joined the page here, at 9 o'clock on Stream TV every week, every Saturday night, we have a line of chiller programming from 9 p.m. until 3, almost 4 in the morning. So you can see on my Facebook page, I have the schedule. I'm going to go over tonight's schedule if you haven't seen it on my page, or Chiller Night Theater's Facebook page, or Chiller Chat's Facebook page. So, but anyways, at 9 o'clock on Stream TV. Have you ever heard of Stream TV, by the way? If you're new to this, to what I'm doing here, you might not be familiar with it. But what that is, it's a streaming channel. And if you live in Oil City, there's 3 ways you can watch it. If you live in Oil City, that's actually your local access channel. I think it's channel 20, Comcast. And everybody outside the viewing area, which is most of you who are either on here now or who will be watching this after the fact, you can go to streammedia.tv, and on that website, streammedia.tv, you can, and I think I have that up here in my comment. Let me check. And if I don't, yes, I do. There's a link up here, streammedia.tv. You can just go to that, click. You can watch it online, or you can scroll down the page a little bit on the right-hand side of the page. You can click and connect to the Roku channel, and that's a really good way to watch it as well. So tonight at 9 o'clock, that's why we're here. Tonight at 9 o'clock, Chiller Night Theater. It's a hosted horror show hosted by Jack Shadow, the skeletal, enigmatic figure who wants to show you Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet tonight. That stars Basil Rathbone. If you don't know Basil Rathbone, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, Basil was actually pretty famous. He's actually very famous. He had quite an acting career. He was in, as far as monster movies, he was in Son of Frankenstein. He played Dr. Frankenstein's descendant, one of his sons. So Basil will take us to the prehistoric planet at 9 p.m. Then at 11 p.m., a brand new Chiller Chat, brand new episode tonight. And that's going to be with Tops Paranormal. That's going to be with Rod Fee and Annette Holmes. They are members of Tops. And what they do is they go out and investigate paranormal activity. They go out to various homes or property or whatnot. And we'll be talking to them tonight on Chiller Chat at 11 p.m. Brand new episode. So you don't want to miss that. If you have any interest in the paranormal or the unexplained, tune in, and we have a really good show with them tonight. 11:30 we show Grave of the Vampire. That was last week's feature movie on Chiller Night Theater, so that's tonight's 11:30 movie this week. And then at 1:30 a.m. Chiller Chat. Okay, now this one is going to be last week's feature Chiller Chat. At 1:30 a.m., George Costanza is the guest, the late George Costanza. He played Sheriff McClellan on Night of the Living Dead. So you don't want to miss that one. And then to top it all off at 2 a.m., Chiller Night Theater, Jack Shadow once again plays Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. So there you have it, folks. There's the schedule. And if you missed any of that, I will repeat it later, but it's actually on my page as well, on my Bryan Hogue's page, Chiller Night Theater's Facebook page, and also on the Chiller Chat Facebook page. So that's that for now. And I am doing this right now. I've been doing this now for about a month and a half. What I'm doing is I'm trying to kind of feel the waters on doing a live Chiller Chat down the road here, hopefully very shortly. I'd like to get this, everything that you're watching now, which me sitting in front of a camera on Facebook, but what I hope to do is take this. These are, I'm just taking my first steps into this live cam business here. And everything I'm doing right now, I hope to do on my YouTube channel with the live cam and actually do live Chiller Chats. And so that is my purpose in Brad Beckworth. Is this an all new episode of Chiller Night Theater? No, Brad, this is not tonight. This is going to be a repeat with Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. The last time we aired this one was back in May, so I'm airing that again tonight. But then later on tonight is Grave of the Vampire. Now that's a new one. If you missed it last week, at least last week was the first time we played that one. So if you missed that, that's what we do. At 9 o'clock we play the feature episode, and then the 11:30 one is the week before's. And so there's kind of a little system we have figured out for what we're playing. So and then you said tonight. Okay, so yeah, that's what's planned tonight, what the schedule that I just gave you. But well, what I'm trying to do, like I said, is to actually do Chiller Chat episodes live. I would love to do these live. I haven't really figured out the background part of this yet, to where I can have the TV studio look behind me. If you've seen the episode of Chiller Chat with myself and Nate Reagan, we did a movie review of The Last Jedi. And it is myself sitting here, and I'm talking to a guest on the phone, and which was Nate in that instance. And then next week, there's another example of that as I interview the Western Pennsylvania Paranormal Investigation Team. And I do it in the same way I talked to Nate. So, but you'll see. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Everything I'm doing here now, I want to get switched over to YouTube. I might keep I guess it depends. I'm getting some pretty good numbers here with these views. Maybe not initially, like I'm within the first 9 minutes of this, and I got a maybe half a dozen viewers, which is good for something new I'm starting up. But then throughout the week, I'm getting several hundred people who are watching this, so that's good. If you're not watching it tonight at 9 o'clock, maybe they're checking out chillernighttheater.com and they can watch the episodes at any time. Maybe they're checking out the Chiller Night Theater YouTube channel. Again, you can check out the episodes at any time there as well. So Grave of the Vampire, we featured that as a first time. We debuted that last week, and that was obviously about a vampire, a real vampire, as far as the blood-sucking vampire, not the bait and switch like Adam Age vampire, which was we played that a couple weeks ago, but that wasn't a vampire at all. That was more like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of, you know, the mad scientist goes through a physical transformation and goes out and kills lady, and he's extracting glands from their neck to make this serum, and so because of the holes in the neck, they that's a really kind of a cheat in my book, but it's they're calling it the a vampire. But later on tonight, Grave of the Vampire has an actual vampire. So if you like vampire movies, this is a neat one to watch. And it has a kind of a neat. Well, watch the opening. Okay, if you can sit there and watch the first 5 minutes, I think you'll really want to sit around and watch the rest of the movie. It has a really good opening with the setting the atmosphere for a vampire with the cemetery and the tomb and the fog. It almost, you know, the fog, the overuse of fog is almost like the old Hammer movies, which I'm not complaining. I actually think that that's a really good thing to have in these old horror movies, especially vampire movies. You know, there's something mystical and supernatural about it, you know, very foreboding. So Brad writes, well, they better make up Star Wars Episode 9 after what happened in Episode 8. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started. If you want to know, you know, even a fraction of my opinion on that movie, there is an actual Chiller Chat episode where we do a movie review, which is something we do on Chiller Chat as well. I don't always just talk to people about, well, it's a horror, science fiction, and paranormal themed program. And also we talk about those topics in the movies as well. So like vampires, for example, I actually dug up my vampire movies. You know, of course, well, we got the you know, Dracula with Bela Lugosi, 1931 Universal, Dracula's Daughter. I just love these old horror movies, these old Universals. Son of Dracula, that had Lon Chaney Jr. as the vampire, as Count Alucard. Alucard. Well, if you know, Alucard backwards is Dracula. So, but anyways, but Son of Dracula was Lon Chaney Jr., which is actually he's playing Dracula. I'm not sure why they're calling him Son of Dracula, but and then there's the House of Dracula with John Carradine. John Carradine plays the Count Dracula. So, and then this one right here is a bit interesting. This one is Return of the Vampire, and that stars Bela Lugosi, who obviously played, you know, Dracula in the original Universal. And if you've never seen that before, if you like old horror movies, it's worth checking out. It's not Universal who made it. I believe it was Columbia Pictures. But you know, so he can't be Dracula in that movie, but he's got the same look. But check that one out. It's actually kind of a obscure movie. A lot of people don't even know about it, that Bella was in that movie. So that was a neat one. So Brad says, I like some of these movies even for public domain. Yeah, I do too. Some of these are very enjoyable movies. The ones featured on Chiller Night Theater. Again, I have to do the public domain movies at this time because I don't have the licensing to do, you know, like Friday the 13th or even these right here, you know, or like some of the Hammer horror. I dug out some of the ones from the other week, the Hammer horror where Christopher Lee played Count Dracula and Peter Cushing played Van Helsing, you know, his adversary, the great vampire hunter. But these ones right here, Hammer horror movies are my favorites. For nostalgia, I love the Universals, but to actually sit down and watch these old ones with Dracula or Frankenstein, well, maybe not Frankenstein, but Dracula and the werewolves, you know, that would have to be Hammer. So I had this one out the other. Salem's Lot. Scared me to death when I was a little kid. You know, just that look of Barlow the vampire. I don't know if you can see that. Just that look of Barlow the vampire. You know, he had that very Nosferatu look to him, you know, which is Nosferatu. Um, but I kind of like that movie. I love that look for a vampire. That very monstrous look, you know, rather than what they do now with like True Blood or Twilight or something like that. You know, as long as it has an audience, you know, to each his own. I just prefer, you know, more monstrous looking vampire. And if they don't look that way, at least act that way. You know, Bella was very dapper, but then, you know, you could tell he had no soul at all. You know, Christopher Lee, obviously his Count Dracula had no problems with killing you. He was just a predator. Nosferatu, this was a very good vampire movie. This was it's a silent movie. I can actually play this one, but I don't know if you would all enjoy sitting there watching a silent movie. I enjoy them, but it's not everybody's cup of tea, and I do recognize that. But Brad says, I really wish that they would let some of those horror movies for public domain, especially the Universal Picture horror movies like Psycho, Halloween, and Child's Play. You agree? I'd love to. Well, I don't know about. I would actually, as a horror host, who you know, with my own show, I guess it would be easy for me to say, oh yeah, because then I would get to play them on my show. But I gotta say, if I were them, I wouldn't let them go either, though. You know, these are really you know, film gems. You know, so would I give them up? You know, if I were them, no, I wouldn't give them up. You know, if I had them, I wouldn't. But I want to agree with that. You know, as Bryan, yeah, that'd be neat. I'd love that. But I understand on their point of view. These are just too good. You know, they're too good as far as being classics. But you know, the edited version, I mean. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, at least I could play, you know, if I had a license. Well, there again, there's the edited version. Yeah, if you did an edited version, you know, if you submitted that to if that was in the public domain, that would be awesome because I could play those without running into any issues. So this one, like I said, I could play Nosferatu. I think I'm going to. If I play no other silent movie, that's fine. But Nosferatu, I'd really love to play this movie at some point. Maybe I won't make it the 9 o'clock movie. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a survey or something like that. See if anybody would be interested. I don't think that they will. Maybe I'll play it and then just have it on the YouTube channel, put on the website chillernightheater.com. Or maybe I'll make it a later movie in the night, you know. Maybe it'll be the 2 a.m. one. There's an idea. Maybe I'll do that. But this is an excellent movie. This is actually you know, they call the vampire Count Orlok because of the copyright. There were actually copyright. The people making the movie, they didn't know anything about copyright, so they just thought. Now, right now, Dracula, the name Dracula and the story of Dracula are in the public domain, but back when they made this movie, that wasn't the case. So they actually got in trouble with making this, and they had to rename the vampire Count Orlok. And everything almost got pulled permanently. They had a lot of problems with just not knowing how things were done. And that happens, believe it or not. That happened with Night of the Living Dead. You know, when they made that movie, you know, when they made Night of the Living Dead, that all fell through the cracks with the copyright, and they left something off in the final production, and that movie went into the public domain, and there's there's a debate whether that is in public domain. It's always listed under public domain, but I don't think it. I don't think it is. At least according to Russ Streiner, the guy who one of the producers of the movie, the guy who played Johnny. He was on Chiller Chat. We played that episode a few weeks ago. I know he says that it's not in the public domain. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know enough about it. I would probably check. I personally would probably check with Russ just before I aired it here on Chiller Night Theater. But you never know. But anyhow, that's what's going on here. I hope, has anybody been watching the show? I know Brad Beckwith, he's mentioned how he saw we had a Friday the 13th marathon where we just played back-to-back Jack. Jack Shadow hosted all these, Chiller Night Theater episodes. So that was pretty cool. We played that from 6 p.m. until midnight or after midnight. And I want to do more of that when it comes to the marathons, or at least every once in a while. I'm not sure what we're going to do for Halloween yet. I'm sure it's going to be something, pretty notable. We're not just, I don't know, we got to do something pretty neat for Halloween. So, hey, if anybody has any ideas, feel free to share them with me. But anyways, I have the, for the last few weeks, I've been doing this top 10 list. My top 10 list for tonight is going to be, I wrote them down. I'm very old school. I have it right here on my computer screen, but I like the top 10 taglines in horror film history. Now, this is the horrornews.net's list. So you see if I can think of a few off the top of my head that are not on here. But, okay, number 10, we just mentioned it a little bit ago. Night of the Living Dead from 1968. The tagline was, "They won't stay dead." Number 9, A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. Don't fall asleep. I should try to say that in a trailer voice, like a preview voice. Don't fall asleep. All right. Number 8, Alien from 1979. In space, no one can hear you scream. How's that sound? All right. But number 7, the tagline is for The Fly in 1986, not the original, but the remake with Jeff Goldblum. Be afraid, be very afraid. Okay, number 6, Dawn of the Dead. Good movie, 1978. When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. That always got me thinking, are all these people who are zombies, were they in hell? I mean, were they supposed to go there and it was just too full? I don't know. What's this supposed to mean? But anyway, I think they they explained it in the movie that it was an old like voodoo saying or something like that. So, and then number 5, Halloween from 1978, the original. The Night He Came Home. Okay, number 4 on the list. Pet Sematary, 1989. Sometimes Dead is Better. Number 3, Maniac from 1980. I warned you not to go out tonight. Number 2, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Who will survive and what will be left of them? All right. And number 1, my drum roll. Number 1 on this list of top 10 taglines in horror film history is from The Blob, 1958. Terror has no shape. Well, there you have it, folks. That's the top 10 taglines in horror film history from, according to horrornews.net. So, can you think of any more? If you can, write them down. Write them down. Brad writes, it was Friday the 13th movie. No, wait, that's not public domain. Darn it all. No, that is not Friday the 13th. I wish we could have played those. That would have been great for our Friday the 13th marathon, but we wanted to do something, that it was just too good of a day not to, an occasion not to do something kind of special with Chiller Night Theater on that day. But no, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Streets, the Halloween movies. I would love to play those. Even if I could play them, of course, I would, have to edit them for TV, which is not a problem. So, but hey, I want to just take a minute to talk about, do my plug for my book, Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween. Now, this came out a few years ago. I'm trying to generate a little bit of awareness for the book. I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to avoid this glare, see, like that. But the cover is very nice. This cover was done by Rick Whitlow, and he's done a ton of stuff for me over the years. When I was a haunted house owner, Rick did all the artwork for my posters for the haunted houses. Rick did this logo. I drew it up and then I sent it to him. I said, I don't just give him a vague idea. I draw it out. I sketch it. I give him the colors that I want. He plays around, he gives it back, and this bat right here, this bat on that logo, believe it or not, that was a very, whether that bat goes on there or not, and then the positioning of the bat, that's a big deal. I'm very, very picky when it comes to this stuff. Rick will tell you I wasn't really fun to work with sometimes. As far as I'm very meticulous when it comes to detail. But Rick's a good guy to work with. He did the cover work here, the cover art. He did for my Dark Horse Championship Wrestling. Again, I draw out what I want. I tell him what the texture is and everything I'm looking for, the color scheme and everything. He sends me back, we kind of go back and forth, the first draft, second draft, and so forth. And what he does end up with is a very nice product, something I can use like this. So on the shirt, on the show. So, but Jennifer Sadler was the author for Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween. Now, this is intended to be a book series of Jack Shadow and his realm, the dark realm that he rules over. So it's kind of a young reader's booklet or a novelette, but I'll read the back here. 5 young teenagers head out together for a night of trick-or-treating, but lose themselves in a dimension of horror. Now they race against the clock to save their souls from the spirit of Halloween himself, Jack Shadow. This All Hallows Eve fantasy is a thrill a minute, and the first in a new series of Halloween fun and terror. Take a step back in time through the veils between the living and the dead. So, as I stated, this was intended to be a series of books. Maybe my phone is kind of acting up on its own. It's weird, but either paranormal activity or maybe the government's listening. I don't know. It's either horror or science fiction. But anyways, but this was intended to be kind of like just a, whether the stories don't even have to be related. They're just probably one of the central figures in it is Jack Shadow, and then Aura the witch is in here as well. She opens up the gateway for on Halloween night and all this for lifting the veil between the living and the dead. But it's a really neat book, and Scott Lubin does the illustrations. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's our weary band of adventurers. These kids go out on trick-or-treating, and they run into Jack Shadow. And I don't know if you can make this out on the camera. There's actually a picture here of the witch, Aura, as she's opening that dimension, the gate between the two dimensions. So But it's really neat. It's a neat book, and I'm trying to generate more and more awareness. But Brad says, have you ever seen An American Werewolf in London? I have seen that. I remember seeing that back in the John Landis movie back when it came out. But you know, the thing is, Ava says that was a pretty intense movie back in the day. Ava says, agree, Brad. You know, Ava, we just watched that. We just watched that. When was that? It seemed like just a few months ago we watched that. Sean Anthony. Good evening, Brian. Well, good evening, Sean. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you very much. We are just discussing, we talked about the schedule for tonight for the Chiller Night programming. I went through my top 10 taglines in horror film history. We went through them. I'm doing a top 10 thing now. I don't know. I think it's kind of neat. But and now I was talking about Chiller Night, the Spirit of Halloween. This right here, this is actually a combination of you know, the artwork with a photograph. And that is actually, you know, myself as Jack Shadow. And it's kind of funny because when we were doing the cover, the body is separate than the head, just a little behind the scenes stuff here. I contacted Rick, and you know, he says, well, I want, you know, I told him what I wanted with Jack standing over the house, looming over the house, you know, the spirit of Halloween looming over this old decrepit looking home. And so I actually had to pose with the costume on in front of a green screen background, much like you're seeing here. And I sent that to Rick, and he said, well, can you put the mask on? Now, this is in the summer, and this is before we before we had a home with central air. It was so blazing hot, and I was trying to get ready for work, and I was like, no way can I do this tonight, you know. So I actually sent him another picture of so there's me standing there just without the mask on, with, you know, the pose with the gloves on. I had the gloves on and the costume, but I had to send him the face separately, and he put it all together, and it looks outstanding. He did a great job. Scott Lubin did a great job with the artwork. It's a really good book. I encourage you. It's on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com. But it's just got everything, you know, all the ghosts and ghouls and zombies that you would expect to be in the land of the dead, you know, that Jack Shadow and Aura the Witch, and now Elle Von Nocht, you know, our vampire character who was introduced, wasn't really introduced last week, but introduced as, in so much as being a kind of a helping out in the hosting duties. You know, she had a clip of her own for hosting. So Brad says, don't forget the Thriller music video with Michael Jackson. The director from An American Werewolf in London also directed Thriller music video. That is, if I had known that, I forgot about that, Brad. That's actually kind of neat that I wasn't aware of that. Or if I had, like I said, I forgot about that. So that's kind of neat. That was I remember when that video came out, and I remember there was an intenseness about it, you know, a really, you know, because there's this little disclaimer from Michael Jackson before that video started, you know, due to my religious beliefs, I want to express that the following video has in no way anything to do with the anything, you know, relating to the occult or something to that effect. And, you know, the first time viewing that, you're like, wow, what's, you know, what's this going to be, you know. But it was really neat, and it was obviously really cool to see Vincent Price in the Thriller video. So might be the cool thing to say that, you know, you know, you don't like it, or it didn't. I do like it. I haven't seen that in years and years and years, but I just remember last time I saw that. I mean, even up until, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. I don't even remember when I saw it, but I always did think that was pretty cool, the Thriller video. So neat little dance routine. But anybody have any Any additional? Oh, you know what? Jaws. Jaws is not really a horror movie, but I remember, but kind of falls into that category, I guess. I mean, if you can call a giant spider horror or giant lizard, why not a giant shark? At least a 30-foot, what is he, 30, 35-foot great white shark. But what was that one? I actually, what was that? You'll never go in the water again, I think was the tagline for that. You'll never go into the water again. And then Jaws 2, I thought was a more memorable tagline, just when you thought it was safe to go in the water again. I really can't off the top of my head think of any other taglines, but director John Landis. Yep, I did mention that with American Werewolf in London. Yeah, very good director. I really enjoyed that movie. I like the well, that would make sense. That would absolutely make sense because they use the same techniques with the bladders. They call them bladders, and what they did was I did this in not film school, the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. We had movie special effects courses that we took, and one of them was to duplicate those effects. They called them bladders, and what you did was you made a slush latex bladder, and you attached an air hose to it, and you could manipulate that with the air pulsing in and out of that bladder underneath a prosthetic. And I remember when I was at the Art Institute, I actually did one on a forehead. I had my forehead going, pulsating in and out for a short little movie clip that I did for the. And Brad says, unless you want to get eaten by a great white shark. And Rita is giving me a thumbs up. All right, Rita. But we're talking about horror movies, but I would kind of throw Jaws in there. I mean, I don't. If you were in the ocean and you saw that would be more terrifying than a vampire or Frankenstein or anything else at the time. Like I said, if you could make a movie about a giant spider and slap a horror label on it, then I think Jaws kind of fits that description. But great movie. The first Jaws was a great movie. As are so many of the sequels and so many, not just in horror movies, but especially in horror movies, your sequels become the fast food of the film industry. You got to crank these movies out just to, you want to earn that little profit. If you get that franchise like the Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, the first ones, maybe the first one or two in the franchise are actually pretty good movies, and then after that they trail off. Now the one exception, there's more exceptions I'm sure, but the one that stands out that is the exception to that is in the Halloween movies. I gotta say, Halloween Part 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, is one of my favorite in that entire series, and that was Part 6. I remember going to the theater to see that. But I really enjoyed that one. That was a movie that had Paul Rudd in it, who just stars as Ant-Man. The Ant-Man and the Wasp just recently came out, so he's been around for a while with quite a bit of success. Jaws, Brad says, Jaws was not even a real shark. It was actually a shark doll that you could put in a closet. Well, I'll tell you what, though, if I were in the water and I saw that, what real or not, it'd still be pretty creepy. I mean, even if you were an actor in that movie, and unless you were really well acquainted with that prop, like I saw pictures, of the production of that movie. I saw black and white photos and stuff, and I remember watching a documentary on them making that movie. And I gotta say, I mean, I don't swim in the ocean much. I go to the beach a lot, but I kind of limit my time in the ocean because, hey, once you step in the water, you've just dropped in the food chain. You know what I mean? You're in their world. You're on their menu. So, I don't know. That would be strange, just being in the water with that prop. So I don't, I'd find it unnerving. Yes, I know it was a prop, but I'd find that very unnerving because everything within you innately, you know, through millions of years of evolutions telling you, get away from that thing, you know. There's that in the back of your mind. I don't care how cool you are, that is going to be screaming in the back of your mind to get away from that thing. But that's just my take on it, you know. I guess on the land, the equivalence of that would be like a huge grizzly bear. Or we watched, that reminds me, we just watched a horror movie. It was in the horror category, Ava and I, a few weeks ago. Grizzly. I remember that movie came out. I think it was 1978. I don't know if you're watching, Ava, if you can hear me, but I think that that's right. 1978. But we just watched that a few weeks. If I don't know, I'm not sure how I would expect her to know because I know this stuff quite a bit. But I remember seeing Grizzly in the theater back in, I think, I don't know, say 1978, and at the Drake Theater in Oil City. And I remember how that was scary to me as a kid, you know. Um, but who knows? They sure make Jaws look so real. Yeah, yeah, they do. Even like I say, even if he's not so real, I think in your mind, at least in my mind, I'm just speaking for myself. If I were in the water and I saw that, even though I know it wasn't real, even if I saw the joint lines around the shark's mouth and that, I think instinctively, everything instinctively within me would fill in those blanks. It's like seeing watching a crime scene occur. You know, when I went to the police academy, it, I'll stay on topic here, but um, they did a demonstration. They showed us a scene from a movie. Half the class walked out, half stayed in. Then we switched places. And then we were to describe what we saw. We all saw the same thing. Now they didn't tell us what we were going to be doing with this information that we saw, but they said, okay, the other guy comes back in the room, tell him what you just saw. Like, okay, what you saw. And I'll tell you what, we were getting so many different, you know, how many people were involved, what they were wearing, because your mind has a way of not being able to process certain things and certain times. Now that's a movie. Nobody felt threatened or in danger in any way at all. But if you're actually, we were probably, you know, not knowing that's what we were going, probably just wanting to sit and enjoy the movie. But um, you know, if you're out in a situation, you see a highly stressful, you know, occurrence take place, and you're, believe me, I know I've done this, you know, for a long time. I've taken people's accounts. What'd you see? You know, and you get some strange, you know, things that you get some strange answers. It's just that, yeah, they saw it happen. I have no doubt, but the mind fills in, you know, and you think that that's what you saw. You see a bear out in the woods. Maybe your mind's telling you saw a Sasquatch or Bigfoot. If you believe that could be out there, that may be what you're seeing. Or if you do see a Bigfoot for real, I mean, these things exist and you're actually seeing one, maybe your mind's not processing and kicking it in and telling you you didn't see it. Or maybe you remember 5 years later. Who knows? I don't know. But anyways, what I'm saying is, I think even seeing a prop like that in your water, I think your mind's gonna do some strange things, you know, playing some tricks on you. But Brad writes, I remember The Edge with Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins. Okay, now I'm not seeing that one. I'm talking about the mean and scary grizzly bear. It was played by Bart the Bear. Okay, I've heard of Bart the Bear. It's pretty great. The director sure made him look so terrifying in the movie. I'm sure he did. I guess dealing with a bear, you probably wouldn't have to do too much to make him look terrifying in certain angles. And then the sound, you know, the sound that they put in has a lot to do with it too. When I did haunted houses, yeah, the one thing I made it a point not to neglect was the sound. When people were standing in line, I made sure that you had some creepy, especially in the dark, black hallways, the tunnels. I made sure that there was some really creepy sounds that you were hearing. Again, your mind fills in the blanks. You know, you what you're imagining is, you know, is with you in that tunnel all of a sudden, or what you can't see sometimes is more frightening. H.P. Lovecraft, he was a, you know, an old horror, very famous writer of horror movies. He had a kind of a knack for just saying, you know, they turned and at the end of the hallway was the most indescribable, horrific thing that they've ever seen. Well, what's that mean? You know, you're now the reader. It's up to the reader to think, okay, what would be that? You know, and you're kind of filling in those blanks. So horror is kind of fun in that way too. You know, making the movies or making the sounds for the movies or writing as an author. You know, so it's all very subjective. It's all up into your personal experiences and just how far you want to go with those. Brad says, I had nightmares as a teenager about that bear. See, I never saw that movie, The Edge. I remember hearing about it, but yeah, the one I remember seeing as a kid was Grizzly. It was about like a, trying to remember, like a 20-foot grizzly bear. You know, it was mauling people up. So I just remember sitting at the Drake Theater in Oil City as a kid seeing that, you know, and it was that was pretty terrifying, you know. But I don't know. Anybody ever see that movie? The Grizzly, it's called. You can actually find it on YouTube. That's how we watched it. We watched it on YouTube. Maybe it was last month or so. It wasn't too long ago. Brad says you have to see that movie when you have to see that movie when you have movie. Oh, the chance. When you have the chance. Yeah, maybe I will. In fact, you know, Grizzly, I'm sitting here talking about Grizzly, and I actually wouldn't mind seeing if that's public domain. If that is, I'd actually like to play that on Chiller Night Theater one of these nights. That would be a really good one. I like movies like that because, in my opinion, that, you know, 20-foot grizzly, that's much more, monstrous than the Wolfman, than Lon Chaney's Wolfman or something, or the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's just that these other things have, you know, supernatural spin on them. You know, well, Creature doesn't. Actually, that's more of a science fiction movie than a horror, because he was the Gill Man, just this creature that how he has evolved over time, and he just happens to be a amphibious creature who would never run into the species before. So anywho, to each his own on how you want to categorize horror movies and how you want to categorize them as science fiction. Now, tonight's movie on Chiller Night Theater at 9 p.m., the first one, is a science fiction movie, Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. They go to these astronauts go off to the planet of Venus, and I think it takes place in the year like 2020 or something like that. I mean, you know, I think we thought we would be a little further ahead in our technology back in the 60s when they made this film, but as far as sending astronauts and robots and stuff there, and all these different type of spacecraft that they have on this movie, it's not a bad film. Not a bad film. You'll see, and Jack Shadow talks about this. I don't want to step on Jack Shadow's toes. I don't want to cause any problems, you know, but the movie's a little choppy, you know, because they actually did one of these things where the movie was originally a Russian release. It was filmed and released in Russia. Now, for the U.S. release, that's when they interject they film Basil Rathbone and, you know, some English actors. They do their scenes, and then they mix them in with the movie. It's a little choppy at times, particularly, I guess, mostly in the beginning when they're adding Basil and his crew. And then Chiller Night Theater starts in 10 minutes. Holy cow! I had no idea I was on here for 50 minutes so far. But thanks for reminding me. Let me go through the schedule again here real quick. But yeah, watch 9 p.m. Chiller Night Theater with Jack Shadow. He's featuring Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. Again, I was just talking about that. If you like the old horror and science fiction movies of yesteryear, I think you'll enjoy this movie. 11 p.m. Again, I say I mentioned about Tops Paranormal Investigators. Rod Fee and Annette Holmes will be on a brand new Chiller Chat tonight at 11. So make sure you check that out. 11:30, Grave of the Vampire. Chiller Night Theater. Jack Shadow features Grave of the Vampire. Not a bad movie. Not a bad movie. 1:30 a.m. Chiller Chat. Our guest is the late George Costanza, who played Sheriff McClellan on Night of the Living Dead. Actually a very interesting guy with that was a good show. That was a good show. I enjoyed that one. And 2 a.m. again, Chiller Night Theater. Jack Shadow features Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. So there you have it, folks. That's the schedule for tonight. Thanks for joining me here for the Chiller Night pre-show live on Facebook. And I appreciate you all stopping by and checking this out. And if you're not watching this live, I know others will throughout the week, because I usually get a couple hundred views on these. So thank you. I appreciate who's ever watching this. And if you care to, I hope that you join Jack Shadow at 9 p.m. on Stream TV. That's streammedia.tv. I got the link right up in the comment here. So streammedia.tv. Go to that site. You can watch our Chiller Night programming all night long. There are a few breaks in between some of the programs, but some of them it's back to back. Hey, if you can't watch it tonight for whatever reason, check it out on Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel under Chiller Night Theater, and theater spelled with the American way of spelling it, theater. There is with a T-E-R. There's another channel that's taking my movies and putting it on. They've changed it and do the British version of theater with the R-E. So watch my channel. So but anyways, Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel, and of course chillernighttheater.com. So folks, thanks for joining me tonight. I better let you go, because you got to get ready. What I mean by that is you got to get that little safety blanket, pull that blanket up around you tight. Jack Shadow talks about. You got to get your pizza. You got to get your popcorn, whatever you need to prepare you for the old horror and science fiction movies of yesteryear with Chiller Night Theater. And then stick around for Chiller Chat. So, hey, thanks for joining me. I will see you next week. Thanks again. Have a good night. Have a good Chiller night.